Go ahead, Ben. You can.
Okay, yeah, just sharing a screen. So you should, I always forget, Teams is a little bit different to Zoom, which is my default. And so you have to click share in Zoom, but in Teams, it just goes ahead and does it for you. So listen, thank you very much for the intro. Just a little bit, what are we going to do? Shift F5. Oh, that's picked up on the wrong screen. So let me just present that on the right screen. We'll just throw that over here. Tell that we're going to do on internal display, Shift F5. Okay, great. So this session, and I think we have an hour, but I'll finish a little early so we've got time for some questions. This session really is about how we can take data out of Planner and using Power Automate or Flow, as it's now called, we can put that into Power BI, and from there we can report on it. So that's really what we're about. Okay, so just a little bit about myself in terms of what do I do, and let's just go on to slide 5 for that. That should work. Yeah. So this is me in real life. Obviously, there's those of you got video, you can see me. Hello, I'm in my home office. I've been a Microsoft MVP for 14 years. Originally, I was an MVP for Microsoft Project, so I know a whole host of too much detailed information about Project, more than anyone would probably want to know. I was an MVP for Project for 13 years. So I looked after Project and Project Server and Project Online for clients. As part of that and those deployments, I got involved in Power BI because the data for Microsoft Project Online, Project Server, but think about Project Online really, is held in the cloud. And the only way we can really report on that, the only ingress we got into that is an OData feed, and you can bring that OData feed into Power BI. So that's how I got into Power BI, and I switched my MVP status, or I was able to switch my MVP status from Microsoft Project to a data platform. So effectively, I'm an MVP in the data platform now. Okay, so that's me. What do my customers have issues, and why did I create this solution, if you like? So let's just nip on a slide from there. If we think about Planner, and I'm not sure if we can put in the chat here, if I ask how many people have, because I don't think we've got too many people online, so if I can open up the chat somehow, or if you can put in the chat if you use Microsoft Planner, that would be most useful to give me an idea of who's doing that. Just started to use it for task management. Thank you, Lee. Apologies if I get your names wrong. Patty, not using. Paul, Alan, not using. Okay, and Ed just started using it. Okay, so the point about Microsoft Planner is that there's no enterprise reporting in there. What do I mean? So let's just go and have a quick look at Planner for those of you who haven't used it. Planner is part of Office 365, and you can see here I'm logged into an Office 365 environment. And from the waffle here, I can go and create Planner plans. Okay. So Planner is part of the people that write Planner, effectively the Microsoft Project group, and Planner came along quite a long time ago. So what Planner allows you to do is really just create what I'm going to call a task management tool. So there's no scheduling in Planner. There's no relationships between this task and another task. Okay, no, there's no driving relationship. So you don't get the Gantt chart view that you get inside of Project and Project for the web, and one task doesn't drive another task. So if one task is late, it doesn't mean that any subsequent tasks are late. Planner's not like that. Planner is a task management tool. Okay, so here we have some plans. This is my demo system, so there's a fair amount of rubbish on here, but I do actually use Planner to plan and track the courses that I produce. So I do produce some courses for a company called Pluralsight, and so I did one a while back called P300 Storytelling, and this is the one I normally demo. So a Microsoft Planner plan consists of various views. Okay, so we have a grid view, a board view, a chart view, and a schedule view. But basically within those views, you have some tasks. Okay, and you can see here we have a task card, and this task card is an activity that I'm going to do in my project or my plan. And this one is called M3. M3 for me stands for module 3. It's a demo, and it was about exporting data. Okay, so that's the name of the task. It sits in a plan called PL300 storytelling. PL300 is a module name for one of Microsoft's exams. And you can see I can have various statuses on that task. So I could have it in different buckets. So if you've used Trello or something like that, you'll be aware of the idea of buckets. You can see if I've got some buckets along the top here to do video in production, video produced, video uploaded, etc. So I can move things into different buckets. I can define a progress. I can define a priority, a start time, a due date, whether this task repeats or not. Okay, I'll come to you. Keep asking the questions in chat, and I'll come to those when I can take a natural break. And then I've got some notes, and this actually should obviously say scenario, not scenario. Okay, so we'll just finish that typo. We've got some notes, and I can add some checklist items. I can also assign this task to people in the team. So if Andre was going to do this task, I could assign it to Andre, and I could also assign it to Ben Howard. So I could have two people doing the task, and I can have other people as well. So other people who aren't yet part of the team, such as Juliet. If I wanted Juliet to be assigned to this task, I could assign her to the task as well. Now you'll see what it says when I add somebody from outside of the group or outside of the plan. It says, would you like to add the task, assign the task, and add the user to the plan? So at the moment, Juliet doesn't have rights to see or edit this plan. If I add her, assign and add, she will. Okay, so underpinning everything here is effectively office groups, and we can think about an office group as being aligned to a team in Microsoft Teams. Okay. So this is Planner, I can move things around, just do a nice little drag and drop. It's quite user friendly. If something's completed, I could just say it's completed. It will disappear from the list and show me as completed tasks, etc. And all is good. So most things, of course, end up, as far as I'm concerned, in final submission, and then I mark them as completed. Okay. So I've got a board of data. I have a grid where I can see things, but in a slightly different view. So this is a fairly new view, actually. I've got some charts, so I can get the status of my plan. And again, that's the chart for this particular plan, PL300 storytelling, and we can, click on a few of this. Is nice and clickable, so we can click on things and things will change. And I can also have a schedule. Okay, so I did say there's no schedule, but you can show things. If you put start and finish dates on things, you can display those in a calendar. Okay, now in terms of kind of other things we can do, we've got basically the admin of the system, but I can also copy the plan to Excel. Okay, export plan to Excel. That, as far as Microsoft is concerned, is your only external reporting option. Okay, so you can see here that I've got lots of planner plans. And if I wanted to get a view on all of the tasks, all of the late tasks across those planner plans, I'd have to, without my solution, export everything to individual Excels and then bring Excel together and do some funky stuff. So it's a bit of a pain. Okay. So I'll go back to the slides, but then we'll just answer the question we've been asked. And the question is, when would you recommend using planner versus project? It's a good question. And it comes down to a couple of terms I've already used. One is task management, and the other is schedule management. If you need a schedule where you can see the time-phased structure of activities and how those activities relate to each other, then that's a good starting point for using some version of project. And I say some version of project because Microsoft have the marketing term project, but there's actually a couple of flavors. There's the Windows version of project, so what we've all grown and loved, as Microsoft Project from sort of Microsoft Project 98 onwards, or Project 4 before that. So if you use Project 98, Project 2000, through to today's version of Project, which gets installed on your machine, that's the old desktop client version of Project. We also have a tool called Project for the web, which is a browser-based only version of the tool, which isn't as sophisticated as the desktop one. So when would you recommend using planner versus project? Typically, if I need to perform schedule management rather than task management. Okay, hopefully that answers that for you. Okay, let's keep posting those questions in the chat. I'll keep an eye on those. So my problem statement is Microsoft Planner is used by many organizations with what was an E1 license, but I now think is an F1 license as a way to manage day-to-day tasks and projects. Okay, however, as we've seen, the only way to view a plan status is by a single plan at a time, and this makes cross-plan reporting very difficult. So imagine I'm in a department and my department is running 12 individual planner projects. How do I get a single view of that? Okay, fairly difficult to do. That comes with a couple of issues. And Microsoft have not provided an enterprise reporting solution for Planner so far. And I say so far, I don't think they're going to do one. But they haven't. Okay, so the only way to automate this, again, as far as I know, is to use Power Automate to provide an enterprise solution for this. Okay, so that's what we have. Let's just have a look at the solution components. And sometimes we have to kind of start at the end or in the middle to work out to either side to understand what we're trying to do. On my version, we have a repository. Okay, posh word for database, posh word for somewhere I'm going to stick some data. I choose Excel. Why do I choose Excel? Well, because everybody is familiar with Excel, and in home, we've got Excel. So if you've got Office 365, you've already got Excel and you've already got SharePoint. Okay, so that's why I choose Excel. Everybody has it, everybody uses it. But you could use, you can modify this. I'll show you the code. I'll show you where you can download it from. You could use any database or data structure that you wanted to, including SharePoint lists. What we then have is we've got planner plans, and each planner plan must be assigned to an office via Teams, okay, to an office team via Teams. So what do I mean by that? Well, again, if I was to open up teams.microsoft.com, then when we create a team, you may or may not know, but you have to give that team kind of a name, or a name is given to you, and then you give that team a group. A group gets associated with that team. And that office group is our unit of security, if you like. And it's that group that we need to query via Power Automate. So Power Automate will go and query a group, and then we can say, give me all of the plans for that group. Okay, so I've got some teams down here. Again, just demo data. So not a lot of great stuff in there. But for one of these teams, we'll take DI Plan V2. Oh, I don't care about teams or channels or anything like that. But if I go into here, okay, I should be able to, in fact, I've done it already here. I'm not sure actually if this is a planner plan or a project plan, but because I've associated a plan with the team, I can view the planner plan. Yep. This looks like this looks like, if I go to timeline, yeah, this is Microsoft Project. So, but ignoring the fact this is Microsoft Project, this could be a planner plan that I host in Teams. And all that means is this Teams group called DI Plan V2 has a planner plan associated with it. Okay, if we get time at the end, I'll show you that. But again, this is being recorded so you can watch these slides again. So each plan must be assigned to an office team in Teams. What we're then able to do is run a flow, Power Automate flow. Now, for me, you can configure this as you like, but for me, I set it up to run daily. Now, this flow does a couple of things, okay? Firstly, it removes all of the existing data in my repository. So we clear the repository out, okay? And then for every team that you have access to, that you are a member of, because obviously you can't go and query teams that you're not a member of, it will go and get any plans, because for each team I can have more than one plan. So for every team that you're a member of, it will go and get the plans for that team, and it will iterate through the plan, and it will write the data for that plan into Excel. So this can take a while to run. So for every plan, we add rows in Excel for tasks, buckets, assignments, checklist items, task buckets, assignments, checklist. We've got one more. The plan name itself as well. And it puts those into Excel. Okay, so I get that to run every night. That data goes into Excel, as we said, and then I've got a Power BI file, and we can schedule Power BI to refresh whenever. So I schedule that to refresh each night. So basically, once a day when I come into the office in the morning, I've got a refreshed Power BI report, which I can look at on my phone. I can get an email about, and it's got the latest data from my planner plan. So that's kind of what we have. Okay, now, come back and have a look at this slide sometime, because what I'm going to show you is actually on GitHub. So you can go and grab this little lot from GitHub. There's the URL, or I'll leave this on the screen for another 30 seconds. You can get your cameras out, and you can take a quick photo of that. What do they call that? Q reference card, Q card? I forget. Okay. Okay. So another 10 seconds of that on the screen, and then we'll have a look at what this looks like in real life in terms of this Power Automate, and of course the Excel, and how you should set it up. Okay, because to set it up, you need to do a little bit of work. Okay, that's that finished with. So let's go back to here. So just so that you're aware, if I go to github.com, I should be signed in, I'm hoping. Yep. There's the repository. Now I've actually got, when you download these Power Automate files, I've got 4 of them. I've got the first one I ever did was called Parallel with no Office scripts. And the one I'm going to demo to you today is with Office scripts. We've got one that's sequential. So instead of running parallel, it runs sequential with Office scripts. And I also had some feedback from somebody saying, hey, Ben, this is great, but I'm only interested in this team. Can you provide me a solution which gives a single team, allows me to enter a team into a flow? So I did that as well. With each of these Office scripts, we'll just go into this one, Parallel with no Office scripts. Basically, what you get is you get a zip file, and that's the flow. And then I always give people a PDF of what the flow looks like. Just see if we can open that up here. Okay, I'm not going to, I will zoom in a little bit for that actually. just so we can get that image bigger. But if you're struggling to import this, if you're in struggle to import the flow, and not everybody seems to be able to, then you can create it from scratch. Okay, because I do provide a map for all of this little lot. Okay. And the other thing that we'll have is an office scripts.zip. So I'm going to demo office scripts to you first of all, because that's the first thing that Flow does. Okay. So let's just go in and open up Power Automate. There's no more questions in the chat, so I haven't got to answer anything there whilst Power Automate opens. This screen, oh, looks different all the time. It's going to ask me, it says 4 of your connections need to be re-authenticated to avoid the following flows from failing. So I'm just going to re-authenticate this. This is quite a good thing to see, actually, because when you import a flow, it's going to have my authentication credentials next to it. So if you were to take that flow and import it into your organization, you would need to, and you do need to authenticate the flows associated with, or the credentials associated with the connections in the flow. Because if you think about it, Microsoft Flow is going to go and connect to Teams. Well, it needs to know who to connect to Teams as. Okay, and then it's going to write to Excel, and it needs to know who to write to Excel as. So these just tell me it can't fix Project Online. I'm not concerned about Project Online at the moment. I am concerned about Power BI. I'll just fix that connection. And I will be concerned about this OneDrive for Business. This has just popped up on a different screen just to show you that. It's going to say which account do you want to use. I'm going to use that one. May or may not ask me for a password. If it's cached, it's not. I'm going to do the same for this one. Pops up on another screen again. So we'll just re-authenticate that. Okay. So it's worth noting that these authentication pieces are in the connections here. Okay. But what do I have? I have a flow. Okay. And I've got various cloud flows. You can have desktop flows, but those need your desktop to be switched on for those to run, etc. Okay. And we can see that I've got a few flows which are blue here. They are enabled, and then I've got some which are disabled. They're the kind of soft colored ones. Okay, let's just have a look at this one called Add Planner Tasks to an Excel Online Business Spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the flow that I've created, and this is the flow that you could import from GitHub. I'll quickly show you how, or I'll show you the import button. But you can see that I run this pretty much every night at about midnight, and it takes somewhere between 7 and 12 minutes to run. And I've got this process advisor, and I could speed this up if I need to. And occasionally it fails. Okay. And it fails for whatever reason. And I normally ignore it, or I could run a restart with it, but normally I'll ignore it. So how do we get hold of that flow? Well, basically, from the My Flows, you can import a package, brackets legacy. This is what Microsoft call this now. And that's going to look for that zip file that you have downloaded from GitHub. Okay, so the zip file would be that, export planner tasks to Excel with scripts.zip. Okay, so if we go back into Flow, it's now going to say import package. I could go into upload, and I would go to, oh, hello. I've got some strange things happening on there. Get rid of that. We would go into downloads, because that's where most of everything comes into. And you can see I've got a planner Power BI with Power Automate main.zip. So I could upload that. So I'd highlight that, click open, and that will bring that package into Flow for me. Okay. Now, when you look at the GitHub repository, you'll also notice that all of this is on YouTube as well. Okay. So as you go through this and you hit issues like this, you know, I blog about quite a few of these issues on YouTube as well. So that's what you need to do. You need to go and check out YouTube when you hit those issues. I'll have a look. We'll pick up my YouTube channel later so we can just go and have a look at that. Okay, back to my flows. Maybe I have to cancel out of this. Yeah. This is the flow we're running. Let's just edit it and kind of step through it. We remember everything has a flow map. Okay, so let's just go and edit this flow. Again, apologies for the screen resolution here. But when you're working on this, you tend to work on a much bigger screen anyway. So I'm just on a standard laptop screen in this instance. Okay, so here's the flow. So a quick one in the chat. Who's seen flow before? So who has a knowledge, if you like, working knowledge of flow or Power Automate? So you guys don't use flow? Nope. Dominic, I like your style. Lee, I know exactly how you feel. Okay. And Ed, I like your style as well. They're not using it yet. Okay. Every day's a learning day, right? For me too. So this is my flow. Okay. And all of these boxes, something happens. Could be an action. It could be just hanging around for a wait. It could be a connection to something. Okay. So let me just briefly explain what's happening to you here. What we have at the top is a schedule piece. Basically, it says, we want to run this flow every day at, I've said 11 o'clock. And you saw that actually it's not quite 11. It'll be sometime after 11, according to Microsoft. Yeah. And we could have some advanced options in there where we say, actually, I just want it to run Monday through to Friday every day, or I want it to run every minute or every month or whatever it might be. Or I want this flow to be scheduled when something lands in Teams or an email lands in this inbox. Lots of things you can do to initiate a flow. My initiation for me for this flow is at 11 o'clock each evening, just go ahead and run. Okay. And then what does it do? Okay, what it does is it starts, and then you can see we've got a series of branches. Okay, and each branch looks pretty much the same. We remove some stuff, we list some teams, and then we apply we do some stuff. Okay, so we do that for tasks, for checklist items, for users. And when I mean users, I mean people who kind of who are team members that will come down to. Assignments, so when I assign a task to a resource, that becomes an assignment. We've got the full list of plans, and each plan has some buckets. Okay, so those are our 6 branches to this flow. Okay, so what does this first bit do? You can see it's got an Excel icon next to it, and this is an icon which kind of runs a script. Now, if you've never seen flow, almost it's worth coming into here and clicking on this little button which says insert a new step, because it'll show you the sort of actions that I can take. I'm not going to add an action, and well, I'll add an action, but I'm not going to save it. Flow seems to reorganize this, so it's now put me on the right hand side here, but it said, what sort of operation do you want? You've got some actions, so I can connect to Excel online, I could go and get the weather, I could receive or run an email, I could do something in Microsoft Dataverse, etc. Okay, and you can go and search for these actions. The one we're actually doing is called run script. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. But we've got some triggers as well. When do you want something to occur? Okay, I want something to occur when a new response is submitted into Microsoft Forms. Yeah. So if I'm running a conference, I could have a form people fill in at the end of the conference and they get to it via a QR code. And then every time something gets triggered in there, I could run something else. Okay. So you have triggers and you have actions. Okay. So the action this first action that I had, it basically runs a script. Okay. Now, the question is, what is a script? Who knows what scripts are? Let's just put that, an Excel script. So if I put that in the chat, who has a working knowledge of Excel scripts? Question mark. Now, to demo scripts, I'm going to go over to Excel whilst you fill that in. Thank you very much, Rob. Okay, so we'll go back to here and I'm going to modify this Excel plan, which is just coming up on the web here, which is called Planner Tasks Sequential. Right, Paul, I'm a bit like you. I've got very limited knowledge of scripts. And Ed, my knowledge, you'll know all of my knowledge at the end of this. Okay, so remember, we're storing all of our data in that Excel file. Where do we get the Excel file from? Well, it's here in GitHub, and it's called plannertasks.xlsx. You can call it whatever you want, but the point is you download that and you store it somewhere where Power Automate can access. Somewhere that Power Automate can access is going to be on a SharePoint site. Okay, so that's what I'm editing here. Oh, not that. That's what I'm editing here. I'm effectively editing that that Excel file. I've called it something else, plannertasks.sequential. But the first thing Flow does is it runs a script, and this script removes all of these well, effectively empties this table, because this Excel file has different tabs in. One tab for effectively equates to each of our flow items. Okay, parallel options in Flow. And what we do is we write data to the table. So we don't write data just to the sheet, because that's messy and difficult to do. And you should never do that. You actually write data to a table. So I've got a table here, and this table in the Plans tab is called the Plan Table. Okay, and you'll notice in the Buckets tab, I've got a table called Bucket Table. And in the Tasks tab, I've got a rather bigger table called Task Table. Okay, now, the first thing our Flow does is it runs a script, which I've called remove existing task rows. We'll ignore this one for now, because that's just show you how you can get at a step. Okay, remove existing task rows. If we have a look at that, it asks for the location of the file that you're going to remove. You're going to write data from or to, effectively, and deleting data is still writing from a file, writing to a file. So it says, where's the Excel spreadsheet where I'm going to run this script? So the location is the SharePoint list. So in this case, it's of SharePoint site, it's group APO group. So we'll go back to here and just check that's right. You can see that here, APO group. Okay. And then it's going to ask for a document library. It's going to ask for a file, and then it's going to remove some tasks. So in this case, my one that I'm running normally deals with that file called plannertasks.xls. Okay, I'm going to demo scripts on this file, which is effectively, it's a copy of the same file, but it's called Planner Tasks Sequential. And what does it do is it runs a script called remove tasks, okay, which exists in that Excel sheet. So let's go and have a look at that remove tasks script. On the automate button, I've got the ability to see some scripts, okay? And again, they're available as part of a GitHub download. And one of those scripts is, well, I've got remove plans 2 in here, but I've also got a script called remove plans. Let's just have a look at that. So basically, the scripts are basically a bit of a replacement for VBA. That's how I think about them. They do the same sort of thing. We could edit that to have a look at it. It's a little bit of a bit of code, but basically what it does is it finds this this table, which is called plan table, which is there, and then it runs through all. It gets the number of rows in the table, and then for every row, it basically deletes that row. Yeah, so that's what it does. So if I was to run this now, it takes a little while to initiate, but then it goes through that table and it removes all the rows. Okay. And if I was to do a similar thing in the buckets one, I could run the remove buckets bit of script, and it would run through all of that and just remove the buckets from there. Okay. So that's what the first bit of the flow does. That first line across all of these branches removes the effectively empties the table for me. Okay. Then what does it do? It then does something called list teams. A list teams is an action that just goes and gets the list of teams. So we've returned a list of teams. And then we need to do something to that list of teams. And you can see what we do down here is we go and get plans for a group. Okay, which plans do we get? Well, or which group? Well, the group that we want to get the plans for is team ID. Team ID is being returned in here. And so we can then say for each plan, we want to do something. What do we want to do? For each plan, we want to list the tasks. That's okay. To list tasks, we need both the group ID and the plan ID. Okay. And then for each task, we can add a row into the table. Okay. And again, this is where this needs configuring. So if we think we're in the task branch of this flow, then what I want to do is, this is what, again, you would configure, is you would configure the location, which is basically just a drop down, right? All of this stuff is drop down. None of this is coding. I've done the hard work for you. So there's the location of all of my SharePoint sites and groups in my little organization. So the group was APO group. The document library, I kind of try and keep things simple. So once APO group's been selected, and then I choose this, it will give me the list of document libraries that I can select from. Okay, I've only got the one called documents because I don't tend to customize my demo sites very much. Wait for that to come back. Then it says which Excel file, or what have you called your Excel file that you grabbed from GitHub? Okay, and which one do you want to write to? Okay, so if I click on that little folder icon there, it should go and enumerate this. Let's take a little time today. Okay, so there's all of those Excel, there's all of the Excel files in that document library. Oh, hello. Why has it decided to do that? Yeah, so we would just take planner tasks.xlsx, which is that one. And then it says, which table do you want to run through or edit or write to? And of course, you saw before that my task table is actually just called task table because it's their table design and it's called, come on, task table. Okay, now look at the columns in here, created by user ID, title, start date, etc., etc. Because we've chosen the table, then it gives me the columns in that table, and I can choose the values to write in the columns. So, for example, there isn't a column for here, created by user display name. Come on. I'll wait for that. Okay, so in this column created by user display name, it's going to say which of the list, which of the task items do you want to bring back? So I could just say, we should just be able to type in user here, if there is one. There isn't. Value created by user display name, created by user display name. Actually, we could put that in. Okay. And that would work quite nicely. And what we'd do then is we would save that flow. We would configure all of the branches. Okay. There's not too much you need to do. You really just need to enter the place where you kept Excel. Okay. You'd save that and you'd test it. And ultimately, you end up with a ton of data inside of, for this flow, the Excel file called plannertasks.xlsx, because that's the one that I was writing to. Okay, and you can see that was modified yesterday when another flow ran. Okay, so that's what that flow is going to go and do. It's going to go and modify and write data to and from that Excel file. Everybody with me so far? I don't know if it's possible to give a thumbs up in Zoom, but a yes, a no, or any questions in the chat, and we'll deal with those. Okay. Oh, there's a thumbs up there. Yeah. Can I do? Oh, yeah. There's a little emoji here. Hey, I'm not a Zoom guy. I work with everybody from Microsoft, and they bizarrely don't use too much Zoom. Okay, so if this saves okay, then we could go and test it. I'm not going to go and test it because it's going to take some time to run. There's a couple of other things I want to show you. Okay, in fact, we could test it. We could test it. Let's do a little bit of testing because I've got the Power BI file there anyway, and we've just about got time. So I'm going to go back to manage for flows on here. Let's just run this flow. Because it's always good to have a look at this. And then that's done in here. If I go into planner tasks, we should see that flow running through here, and it will go and delete some data for me. And you can see that's already happening. If we have a look in plans, if we leave ourselves, yes, there's the script just run from flow. The script is running to delete these existing tasks out of the table. That's what we ask it to do. Yeah, go away. Okay, so that's going to take a little while to run, but we'll leave it running. Now, what we then have is a Power BI template file. Okay, so let me just open up Power BI and see if we can find one of those. Because I've downloaded a few, and they'll be sitting around on my system somewhere. So I'm just opening up the Power BI desktop. So again, a quick question to you: who has a working knowledge of Power BI? Question mark. Oh, brilliant. I do. Yes, from Paul Allen. Fantastic. Okay, Dominic, I've seen it. Dominic, it can change your world. Okay, same for Rob. Okay, or find somebody who does if you want to do some enterprise reporting. And this isn't just useful for flow, this is useful for anything. So here's the Power BI desktop. Okay. So what you can do is you can get data from multiple data sources, literally hundreds of data sources, and bring data in. I really only do Power BI today. That's all I do. So we've got a list of data sources and a whole host of other data sources. But one of the things that we can do with Power BI is we can give you what's called a Power BI template. Okay, so I'm going to go into Power BI and I'm going to import data. That looked like an export to me there. Export to template. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to click File, Open. Oh, sorry, I wanted to import. I'm going to import a Power BI template. So think about this as a Word document template. It's set out in a certain way, isn't it? Well, that's what my Power BI template is. It's a file that's set out in a certain way. Okay, 10 minutes to go. I might not be able to give you 5 minutes to ask questions, so keep just asking them around. Now, in my downloads, I've got a template which I downloaded from GitHub called Planner Report with Flow.pbit, Power BI template, T for template. Okay, so I'm going to open that up. So highlight that, open it up. This is something I created, and did I click on open? Maybe not. And it, of course, is available in that GitHub repository. So if I go back to GitHub, you'll see that we have a planner report with flow.pbit. Okay, let's minimize that and go back into here. It's going to take a couple of seconds to open up. And what it's going to ask me for is the location of my Excel file. So while this is thinking about that, let's go and have a look at where we get that. In fact, here it is. This comes up, and it's this little, I put a bit of text in here, and it says, basically, the Power BI template that takes data from an Excel file stored in SharePoint, enter the path to the Excel file stored in SharePoint, blah, blah, blah. So this is the file that we've populated with Flow. Okay, I'm going to just see how that's doing. It's going slowly. Okay, have we got anything in buckets? Okay, buckets was deleted, and then some more things were added in. So this is working quite nicely. Okay, so how do we get at that data? I'm going to show you how we can get at it. I'm going to take this planner sequential one. So if I was going to open up this, what I have to do is I have to open it up in the desktop app. And the desktop app basically means Excel. Okay. Okay, here's this one actually running. So what I need to do is I need to click to edit this in the desktop app, because there's a little path that I need that I can't really get from this URL here. So we'll click close on that. And Excel is going to open, and it'll probably open on another screen. So we'll just wait for that to open. So it's opening Excel. Okay, I'm done with this one now. Come on, Excel. There we go. I knew it would open on another screen, of course, because that's the demo. That's what happens when you do demos. Okay, so this is, again, it's the same file. Okay, and just happens to be editing it in the desktop now. And on the file tab, there's a little info button, and on the info button, there's a copy path button. Okay, and that's me done. I've copied the path to that Excel file, and that path is then what is pasted into this piece here, Excel file web URL. But we remove the question mark web equals 1 from the end. So I can just hit Control V, get rid of that question mark web. Okay. And then what's going to happen is Power BI is going to go out to that Excel file, and it's going to go and query all of those tables and bring that data in. Okay. Now, because I deleted some stuff from there, this may or may not work particularly well. I might get some referential errors, some integrity errors, but I'm not going to worry too much about that at the moment, because when you run through this will just kind of work for you, and I'll show you one that's working anyway. Now, basically what Power BI does is it allows you to visualize data. Okay, so it's a way of taking a lot of data out of an Excel file or an API or a SQL server or an Oracle server, or even a combination of all of those, mashing them together, think of a data warehouse, and then visualizing them in some way. Okay, and that's effectively what we're doing here with these tables that we're getting out of Excel. We are taking the individual tables, and then we relate them together, and we come back with what we call a model, which we can then use to visualize the data. So we'll see if this is going to come in, which it kind of looks like it's doing okay. I am getting some a warning that Zoom's taking up a lot of resources, system resources on my laptop. So, but, you know, we'll kind of live with that as we go through. Okay. So whilst that does that, let me kind of show you and take you through the next piece of this. What you can do in Power BI is you can take your Power BI report and then you can publish it. Okay. And you publish it up to what's called a workspace. And a workspace is a granular unit of security. So you can see I've got various workspaces here. Okay, and each of these have different people that can access that workspace. Now, I've done this report a few times, so I'm guessing I published it into this workspace called Planner Reports. Let's go and have a look at that. Okay, whilst this loads up, when you publish a report, you also have the option of saying, hey, I would like this report to be refreshed on a regular basis. So let's think of this. I automatically run my flow at about 11 o'clock each night. Normally takes 7 to 10 minutes to run. Assuming a few other things might happen, I can automate my Power BI report to refresh every night, maybe at 3 a.m. or something like that. So let's just have a look at this. Yeah, so here we've got a data set, and we can see that I have a scheduled refresh on that data set. We should be able to just view that as a setting. Okay, so the data set effectively is the Excel file. Okay, had a little problem with the refresh. Don't know about that. See if we can refresh that now. Data set, enable, view data set, show details. That's OAuth refresh. That could have been just permissions. Let me just see if we can set that up. Data set source, edit credentials. That should be fine. So it is basically just, in this case, a password reset issue. We'll choose to refresh that with Ben Howard. So the data set is going to refresh with data from, take the data out of that Excel file. So let's just go back to this workspace, Planner Reports. I could run a scheduled refresh now, Planner with Flow. So in fact, let me again show you this. We should be able to say we want to data source credentials refresh, configure a refresh, set this up to refresh daily. So it failed, so it takes that refresh out. I'm going to add another time, so I might just go for 3 a.m. apply. Okay, and then if it fails, I'll get an email. This is test data, so I don't really care. So this is going to refresh automatically at 3 a.m. So Flow's going to run at 1 a.m. This is going to refresh at 3 a.m. I can force a refresh on it now by clicking that little button, and it'll go out to whatever Excel file I configured for this, and it'll refresh for data. Okay, so that's run pretty quickly. It's not come back with an error. That one has, that one has, that one has. Okay. Let's go and have a look at the report that I could publish that is available to me. Okay, so I have a front page, which is just some blurb, and then I've got all of the tasks across all of the plans. Okay, so I've taken those planner plans, put them into Excel. Excel has taken, or Power BI then has taken that data from Excel, created a model out of it, and now I'm able to say, hey, let's just go and have a look at all of the plans for the project for the web fundamentals team. Okay, so I can select that and I get all of the plans. So I've got two plans in there, all 3 plans, one for MPUG today, one for PL300 storytelling. I can see the buckets, I can see the titles. I can say, let's just have a look at everything that's assigned to this user called Ben Howard. Okay, so Ben's got one task to do in there. Okay, it's remaining. Okay, so you can begin to interrogate all of the tasks across all of your plans. Okay, and that's the end result of that. I realize I've run out of time. Thank you, Ed, who has come on for that. I'll answer the questions in the chat So is Power BI available with 365 subscription? It depends, Paul, on your version of 365 subscription. If you have an Enterprise E5 subscription, yes, it is. If not, you have to buy a Power BI license. What Power BI license is required for this? Actually, you can do all of this with the free license, but you won't be able to share it. So Microsoft provides you with effectively the Power BI desktop and the ability to publish to a workspace called My Workspace. Okay, so you can publish to My Workspace for free, but only you can see the data in My Workspace. Okay, so that may or may not work for you. Okay, otherwise you have to buy a pro license. I think I'm on a license for, oh, it doesn't say. General should tell me what license I've got. They've just changed this a little bit because of the fabric piece. So actually it doesn't tell me what license I've got in here. It might tell me here. Yeah, I have something called a premium per user license, but most people will either have smaller organizations will have pro licenses, larger enterprise organizations might have what's called a premium per user license. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions, I'll answer those. Otherwise, it's back to just to wrap this little lot up.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. It was a lot of information and a great presentation. I'll keep this for a little bit, and then I want to share. I want to steal the sharing from you, Ben, and
of course.
Let me see, share. Yeah, this is for BDU. This is the code for BDU. Sorry. Yeah, this is the code for BDU. We will email the presentation, record and presentation after, like in a weekend, maybe we will definitely email these, and the code will be there. I'll keep it just in the screen for a few minutes, for a few seconds, and then we will call it done for today.